When we talk about mindfulness, naturally most of you will think about Buddhism, because I think world over this concept of mindfulness as a spiritual practice is made very, very popular by Buddhism and Buddhist books and Buddhist content. And so it has been really fascinating for me that now that I'm reading this Uttaradhyayan Sutra, I have actually come across mindfulness within this Jain piece. And I think it's really fantastic, considering the fact that I am born as a Jain, and I have only been hearing about the food restrictions and ahimsa being the central pillar of Jainism, and now I am coming across mindfulness, which is a core spiritual practice and something that I also hold very dear. And so it's really wonderful for me. In this piece, we are going to approach mindfulness and awareness. I think this is a very, very relevant piece for all sadhakas, so let's get into it. So the first part, we basically spoke about two sections, which were how the monk should behave, the discipline of the monk, and the second piece, which was the 22 problems that a monk will face. And these both sections were addressed to monks specifically. And then when I had covered in my video, I said that a lot of it is very relevant for us as sadhakas also. So there is no reason for us to just skip it or something. Definitely it makes sense for us to also understand that content and kind of imbibe whatever qualities we can. And there were a lot of learnings from that. So now this section is for all monks and all sadharmic. Sadharmic is the Jain people, but it's basically for everyone. So it's not only for monks. And so that hopefully will make it even more relevant for us. So the chapter is called 4 Essentials, key 4 components that we must understand. One is that it is really tough to get human birth, because we may take birth as so many different creatures. We could be animals, we could be Dev, we could be in hell, we could take birth, we could take little insect birth. So many different forms of births are there. So out of all of these, coming and taking a human birth is a big deal. Second is, once we get human birth, will we actually come across real Gnan, what we can call true knowledge. And in this it is means in terms of the religion. They keep talking about true religion. So they are talking about Jain Dharma. But they are just saying true religion. So I am taking it as a genuine spiritual path. Like, how many of us after taking human birth will we come across a genuine spiritual path? And third thing is, if we do come across it, will we take it seriously? Will we actually believe it? A lot, as we can see world over, that a lot of spiritual paths, gurus and all exist, but how many people are actually able to get convinced by it to, really listen to what is being spoken properly, to follow some of the practices and all that stuff. And that is the fourth aspect, which is, even if we were to listen to true Gnan and we were convinced by it, can we actually walk the path? Maybe it will happen that we come across a great guru, we are totally convinced and surrendered, but our life situation is such that we cannot simply leave, and we are in the middle of a lot of muddles. Or our mental situation is such that even though we feel that is the correct path, we have so many strong desires and all that stuff that we are not able to actually implement that path. So many issues will be there, because of which we can't actually walk the path even though we feel the path is correct. So all these 4 aspects have to be considered by the sadhaka. And I personally actually have heard this thing before, so it was very natural, so I kind of skimmed through it, but I thought I will repeat it for y'all because maybe y'all haven't heard of it. So after this, they go to describe the journey of a typical soul. It says that basically the soul goes through a whole bunch of lives, where it's different forms of life, like insects, animals, hell beings, and then finally it becomes human birth, and that is when it means it is progressing to some extent, spiritually progressing. And once it becomes human birth, then the 4 stages come into action, that finally it got human birth, but it never got to listen the true dharma. Finally it got human birth and it got to listen true dharma, but it was not convinced at all. Then it got human birth, it was able to hear the true dharma, and then it was also convinced, but the situation was not conducive for them to actually walk the path. and then finally at some point a human birth happens where all the other conditions are fulfilled, and finally they find true religion and they get convinced and they walk the path, and that is when finally they move towards enlightenment. What they say is that the soul will then progress, and at some point they will go to heaven. They'll become a god in heaven, and the gods in general are last for innumerable time. But even they, despite the long amount of time that they will be gods, their karma does, the good karma that led to them being gods does end, and eventually the gods will come down and become and take human birth, and finally they will do all the things necessary. They will do enough sadhana to get enlightenment. What I am not clear about is whether the soul will, as it starts moving towards enlightenment, does it straight away get moksha, or does it necessarily have to become gods for a few lifetimes and then come back again and then get enlightenment? That one piece I am not too clear of. As I mentioned, this sutra is a little summarized, like this whole journey of the soul is just described in a very few stanzas and paragraphs, like couplets of lines. So it is not as in-depth that I would think. Probably in some other place more depth has been given. The little bit of a controversial aspect over here is that when they say that the gods will come down and take human birth and finally get enlightenment, they are very clearly mentioning that their birth will thus now be in a very high gotra. It will be a very rich and very prosperous kind of a birth they will take. They will enjoy a lot of pleasures of wealth, good relations, friends, including slaves is what they have mentioned. So that part is a bit controversial. Moving that aside also, this whole section, few lines which says that the final birth of enlightenment will be of high gotra and all that sounds a little bit supremist. So however, what I want to mention here is a lot of times this topic does come up, because if you see all the Tirthankars, for example, all of their births have been in royalty. They were all princes ready to become kings, but they chose the path of renunciation. Same with Buddha also. Buddha was also a prince. And when I was speaking to the monk in Nepal, Buddhist monk, he did say something about this which I don't entirely remember. But he mentioned that a lot of the births that Buddha took, not just as Gautam Buddha, but the previous births as well, those were also very high births, in the sense they were princely births, royal births. And he had given an explanation for it which I don't remember right now. So let's leave this matter for now. We need to just come back to this and revisit. So for myself, what I'm doing is I'm just skipping these few lines, because at the end of the day, that little piece of information is not life-changing for me. So let's move on. Main crux of this whole chapter is this only, the 4 conditions. First of all, we must really value our human life, because as the 4 essentials, right, you hardly ever get a human birth. Finally, when you do get a human birth, you may not hear the true Gnan. If you do hear the true Gnan, you may not get convinced because your mind is stuck in the filth. Finally, if your mind is not stuck in the filth and you are able to absorb the true Gnan, see the truth of it, in which case will you be able to walk the path. So these 4 things, if you get all 4 things where you're even reasonably able to walk the path, that's a very, very great opportunity and must be truly valued. That is the main sar of this piece. Let's go to the next piece. That is the 4th chapter of the entire Uttaradhyayan Sutra. The name of it is very interesting. It's called Asamskrit. I tried to find the meaning, but I couldn't. So I searched for the meaning of Sanskrit. And Sanskrit, apart from the fact that it's the name of the language, Sanskrit also means like adorned, refined. Because there's a juxtaposition of Sanskrit versus vernacular language, and Sanskrit is always considered the higher one. It is the more superior one, more refined one. So if you look at Asamskrit, we could consider it as unadorned. However, the other couple of translations that I was referring to they translated Asamskrit to mean irreparable or impurity. Both of the meanings are fairly different. So I came up with my own meaning, which is unadorned or unbeautiful. So this chapter basically goes deeper into valuing the human life. So what they are saying is the human life can go away anytime, at any point the life can break, we may die anytime. So we must really, each and every moment that is happening, we must really value it. Especially the sadhaka must value it more than anything, and that is true in my own experience. People think that because we are, living a minimalistic life, or we are letting go of stuff, we are not paying much heed to other things like career and those kind of things. But the fact is, I have seen it in my own experience that each and every moment you're valuing those moments a lot more, and that is why you are leaving everything else, because you see that that does not have the satisfaction you are looking for. If you like watching these things about Jain scriptures and all, I have some premium videos which talks about some of the Hindu gods in Jainism. I'm referring to a book called Trisashti Shalaka Purush, which means 63 great beings. It's a pretty interesting thing where the entire Jain metaverse in a way has been described. So you can join the channel for a small subscription fee and you can watch those videos. So in this chapter they make a few different and interesting points. I will cover those. One of the first point is that a person's karma is very individual. It is not shared by any of your friends, family, of anyone. And there is a very beautiful story which was not in this scripture, but we've heard it a lot. So this concept is very common for me, but I want to repeat it. Maybe it's not common for you. There is one very famous story of, I think, some bandit or dacoit or someone was there. And he used to just attack the people on the highway. And one time he faced a monk, and the monk asked him, why are you doing all this? So he said that obviously for my family and all, they expect me to provide them with all the money and everything. So I take all this back and, I give it to them, and they are living a very good life. So the monk asked that, so do you think that the bad karma that you are accumulating from all of this, your family is willing to share? And the dacoit actually says that yes, of course they will share. When I am giving all the money, they know from where the money is coming. So obviously whatever karma I am getting from this, they are also sharing it only. But then the monk said, no, are you sure? Please go and check with all your family members. And then that dacoit goes to the family members and he asks them that, see, that I am a dacoit and I just harm other people and take their stuff and give it to you, and you are enjoying all those pleasures from the money and wealth I bring. So the bad karma that I accrue, are you willing to share in that also? And all of his family members refused. They said, no ways, why should we share? Your job it is to bring money for the family. You started this family. So however you bring, that's your business. We do not share in it. We did not tell you go and loot someone to get that money. So at that point, the dacoit has a huge realization that, oh, really, you don't think that, that's this point that basically our karma is our own. Nobody else is going to share in it. So a lot of times if we are going about with our friends and all and doing something inappropriate, but just because we are in a group, we have that safety that, everyone is doing it, so what? But the karma that each one will accrue will be individual. Next point is, of course, the bad karma will lead to hell and everything. So I'm skipping that. That's kind of a little, we know all this. Very interesting anecdote they have given. If you carry a light inside a dark cave, if the light goes off, you still won't be able to see the path which you already know exists. Basically, you've already walked the path so many times, you know it is there and you could actually walk it. But because you choose to carry a light, it creates night blindness, So if the light just goes off, your eyes are simply not going to be able to see anything in the dark. And this is genuinely very true, and you will actually experience it. Like a lot of city people, if you just put them in some rural area with very few lights, they can't see, they don't know how to go about things. But the fact is, if you were to just give some time, like if you stayed there in few days, you did not use a torch or anything, your eyes will get accustomed and your senses will get accustomed to just go about fine in that less light. So what they are trying to say with this proverb is that a man who has a lot of illusions in his mind, he will not be able to see the spiritual path. Even though it's obvious, the spiritual path is obvious, but he will not be able to see it because mind is full of illusions. Now, one other very interesting part in this is that, usually light is spoken about as something that is good, no? It's like tamasoma jyotir gamaya. which means that from darkness, let me go to light. So light has always been showcased as a good thing and a positive thing. But this is one time where you come across a thing which actually depicts light as a bad thing, because in a dark cave, you would have already known the way if you did not use light, because your eyes were capable. But now you have light and you can't see the path. That's super biting. I love this. Now there's an extremely important point, and this is where we come to the mindfulness and awareness bit, which I alluded to in the introduction. Sorry it took so much time. But basically what they are saying is that the sadhaka needs to be like the bird Bharand or Bherunda. You would have seen this two-headed bird in a lot of different places, because in the Vaishnav Sampradayas, a lot of them consider this bird as Vishnu's avatar. I'm going to do a separate video on this bird because it's too intriguing, because this bird, for some reason, it is actually a very small part of Indic culture and Indian scriptural, like the way here in Jainism it has been mentioned. Similarly, it has been mentioned in Buddhism and in Vaishnav scriptures, but it's a very small part. So why is it so famous? Like, it's become the emblem of Karnataka. It's used for the Mysore sandal soap. It's apparently even gone international, and it's like used in Germany, Russia and stuff. It is too fascinating. So I'll do a separate video on that. Do check that one out when it's out. You can subscribe to the channel so you can watch that video when it comes out. You'll get a notification. But the point is, why is a spiritual sadhaka being asked to become like a Bharand bird? It's because it has two faces, and what is being said is that because it has two faces, one face can pay complete attention to the task at hand, because you do it carefully. Mindfully is what they are saying. So you do something very mindfully. When you do something very mindfully, the understanding is that you are totally with this task. However, when you're totally with this task, you also need to be aware of everything else. And so that is what the second head does of the bird, that the second head is completely aware of everything. And that is your mindfulness and your awareness. This is really important because these are two aspects which are very much there. Like, even in terms of meditation, like there are two types of meditations. One is the meditation where you focus on one thing, which is a mindfulness thing. You just take one thing and you just with it. But there is a second type of meditation where you're just aware. You just observe. So, and in my own personal understanding, my personal experience, I see both these aspects are very much there in us. Like, when you're truly mindful of something, you actually become a lot more aware of your surroundings as well. It is not that you're completely forgotten. Yes, sometimes you could go deeply into a task and you are not aware, but the fact is, when that ability to go very deep into one task comes, your ability to become very aware of everything happening around you is also enhanced, because they do go hand in hand. Like Sadhguru also, he will make one statement. He will say 100% involvement in a task, but no attachment. So again, these are like almost like two opposites, but they come together, and that is how it is in experience, and that's what the Bharand bird is depicting as per this Jain content. And that's amazing, because whenever we have heard about the Bharanda bird, especially in terms of the Vaishnav stories, it always is the bird that's depicting a lot of strength, like too much of strength it is depicting. But here it is actually depicting a very, very subtle aspects which not all sadhakas would be aware of, but it is often spoken about. In fact, even when I had the conversation with the Tibetan Buddhist monk in Nepal, I have put a very long video on it. He also mentions, when we talk about meditations and types of meditations, he talks about mindfulness and awareness being part of the same coin. So the thing is that it is basically it is told for a monk, but we will take it like all sadhakas should be extremely mindful of everything that they are doing. Right from the beginning, it must be like this. This quality of mindfulness is extremely important, and you also have to be aware that the people around you are sleeping. They are completely within the illusion. They cannot understand spirituality, and because of that, you have to be very aware of everything else. At the same time, very, very careful and specific about everything you are doing. And this quality has to come from the beginning, because at any moment life will go away. So you can't wait till the end. The people who wait till the end, they think that right now, it's not so important. We have a long life ahead. Later on, we will cultivate all of these things. Like right now, let's enjoy just those people will have a problem when they come near close to death. They will try to avoid death. And this is important. Let's end this at this note, because the next chapter is about death.